between the skies. Rely on yourself and no way. Believe.
Good morning, everybody. Hopefully everyone's doing good. Had a good weekend. I'm about to embark on this topic, and not quite sure people are going to appreciate it, but it is what it is. Tithing and whether or not it is commanded. And we have to look at a couple of things before we get into the actual meat and potatoes of this. I think first we need to understand what the modern connotation of tithing is. Because unfortunately, tithing today is not what it should be, used to be, designed to be. Today, tithing is a paycheck. And I mean on the church's side. It has become a avenue for making mad money. Mad money. So the question then becomes is how did we get to the point where the church has implemented a new commandment where no commandment was given? Because the easy answer for this topic is no, it is not commanded. And I mean it is not commanded in a manner that it's done today. It simply isn't. Levitical law is where the original concept of it popped in, but it was not for everybody. And then it became more of a challenge to see the mercy of the Lord, but it was never today a command. People quote Proverbs and they quote Psalms and they'll quote Genesis and they'll quote Chronicles and all these verses with giving in it. And then they'll quote the New Testament where he says to give. The problem with many people is that they use the verse and they don't see that when Jesus uttered those words, he himself was still under the law. The New Testament did not come into effect. The new rules that we live by did not come into effect until after his death. Jesus lived and spoke by the law. That was intentional because he could not have been here, solidified it, and still lived it. He had to be the sacrifice to fulfill. His living, his existence, brought to life the law, and his death put an end to it fulfilled. So he lived under the law. So when telling someone to give, like the widow's mite situation, it was under the old, not the new. There was never, ever any indication written anywhere that tithing became a rule for Christians today. They'll quote stuff like, "For where your treasure is, there's your heart also," and that's be a reason to give. I don't know exactly how the church got to where it got to by mixing and matching, but it has almost become a you can go to hell situation if you don't give in certain churches. Some of you may have encountered this, where you go to a building and the instant request is to pay up. Now, am I saying that you should not be using your money for God? No, I'm not saying that at all. I am saying, in the context of the way it is now, it is not in any way, shape, form, or fashion one biblical or godly. It simply isn't. It is not something one needs to ask for. The problem is that now it has become the mainstay and source of a church's income. It is now how the majority of churches make money. So you open and I use the term church very loosely. So you open a church and you establish yourself as a 501c3. And in order to keep that, you have to have tithing. So it's all donations. You don't make money, but you do get money. And so to keep that up, you have to keep encouraging the giving. And in order to encourage the giving, you have to tell them that they'll be getting something out of it, even more so the more they give. And so you quote the Old Testament and you give them some good platitudes about what giving does for the soul. And you hope that they produce more funds every Sunday. Yes, will a man rob God? That's another one that they like to use. Now, as far as the tithing itself goes, the act itself seems to have been relegated to the church. And then they put everything else on goodwill. So, like, say you go and attend a church, and you have decided that your giving will take place to the homeless on the street, to the people holding signs, to the delivering of food to people who have no food. So you've now dedicated what funds you have, your first fruits, and that's what you purchase with your first fruits. You pull cash out to hand to people and you buy food to give to the homeless. So you go to church Sunday and they notice that you have not been giving. You have not been tithing. My question is, have you been tithing? That's my question. Do you consider what you are doing tithing? Now, should the church consider that tithing? The other question is now, should the church be doing exactly that as opposed to taking in money? Is tithing, tithing biblical? That is the real question. Is tithing biblical? It was, still is, but it is not in the manner the way it's done now. it has been usurped. It has been usurped. The same way that marriage has now been hijacked by myriads of other entities, so has tithing. Because we've left the reasons for it behind and have now moved on to compulsion of a group. It's all now because the group says, I have to give because my church says that's the sign of a Christian. He loves a cheerful giver. You know that one? Have you remember now? Remember this one. He who sows sparingly will reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully will reap bountifully. Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Remember that one? Let's read the whole of it and see if we can get some context, okay? Let's do that. Let's read the whole of that one. This one is vital. I want to make sure I get the right translation. I don't want the English Standard. I don't at all. There we go. Now, concerning the ministering of the saints, it is superfluous for me to write to you, for I know your willingness, about which I boast of you to the Macedonians, that Achaia was ready a year ago, and your zeal has stirred up the majority. Yet I have sent the brethren, lest our boasting of you should be in vain in this respect, that, as I said, you may be ready, lest if some Macedonians come with me and find you unprepared, we, not to mention you, should be ashamed of this of this confident boasting. Therefore, I thought it necessary to exhort the brethren to go to you ahead of time and prepare the generous gift beforehand, which you had previously promised, that it may be ready as a matter of generosity and not as a grudging obligation. But I say this: he who sows sparingly will reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully will reap bountifully. Let each give as he purposed in his heart, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound to you, that you, always having all sufficiency in all things, may have an abundance for every good work. As it is written, he has dispersed abroad, and he has given to the poor. His righteousness endures forever. Now, having heard that, is giving, tithing, a command? Is it a command? That's the biggest question. Is it a command there? No command. Now, if you read this, the people he's speaking of had already, on their own volition, wanted to help. They did. The only reason, the only reason people were sent was to verify that the reason for their giving was set in stone as a matter of generosity. This has zero to do with the act itself so much as it does with the heart behind the act. Now, many use this. They use it. And I've heard, look, I've been to church a long time. I've always gone to church. And this is exactly the verse they always bring. They love this verse. So let each one give as he's purposed in his heart, not grudgingly of necessity. Now, here's my point again. I am not saying that a believer ought not to give to a church body. That is completely up to you. However, if the place you go to tells you it is a matter of salvation or proof of your Christian living, they are lying to you. They are lying to you. God has always been about the heart of the matter, the reason. Churches today are not about the reason, they're about the amount and the consistency. You see, they want you to stay consistent with your giving, but their giving that they're asking about is not from your heart, it's out of obligation to the system. It is an up to you thing in whatever manner you, and it's a matter of your heart towards your God. Many don't want to talk about this. There are many people that will go through the week giving to food banks, $5 and $10, $15 here, because it's just what they do. There are some that get their paycheck and set aside an entire amount, that 10%, and give it to an organization. There are some that will take 20% and give that aside to just randomly handing out money because that's what they've purposed to do. There are some, however, that give it in the hope that they'll get something back. God, you see, I'm being generous. Bless me. Now, you probably heard this too. When you give, it'll be brought back to you, shaken and stirred together. You've heard that one before? Have you and now be honest, tell me even if you've not heard that one before. That when you give, God blesses you above and beyond that you can even imagine. You've heard that one too? That in order to be blessed, you have to give. Now, mind you, it's not even that you have to give to somebody, you have to give to the church for it to work. That's not even remotely biblical. There's zero place you can find that in the Bible. None. They will bring up all sorts of examples in the Bible that has nothing to do with giving. They'll talk about the oil. They'll talk about the 5 loaves and 2 fish. They'll talk about the widow's mite. They'll mention all of those things in an effort to get you to see it their way. And again, I have to emphasize, I am not saying you cannot and should not give to an entity. Like I said, this is between you and God, not what man compels you to do, but what God compels you to do and where. Now, mind you, the Bible doesn't tell you where. The Bible doesn't say where. Doesn't give you an exact amount of how much either. Mentions first fruit and in the manner of giving, but it never tells you. So, how do you know? How do you know what to give to? Most people just go listen to the pastor and have the pastor tell them where to give. So, where did the pastor find out where to give? Well, the pastor meets with his governing body, and the governing body tells him how much we need. So, what's the difference between him going to a governing body and you going to God? They don't want you going to God because more than likely, God ain't going to direct you to just give. It's a very important thing that you talk to him. And for all the people out there that say, oh, God, don't talk now. Okay, good. Then don't talk to him. Okay. If that's how you truly believe, then don't talk to him. And don't expect to hear from him either. That's fine. You can be like that. I have no problem with you being like that. If God doesn't speak today, he doesn't speak today. Okay. Now, for those of you who have spoken to him and he has spoken back to you and you know it, please continue. Please continue. God looks after his people through his people. And the only way for his people to know what the people need is to speak to the person in charge of the people, and that's God. And he will dictate the way things go. A member is lacking, and this is the problem with the church. A member is lacking. The church doesn't even know about it because they're not in tune with it. They're in tune with what that person gives. They have no clue if that person's in dire need. Technically, there should be no one hungry that belongs to a church. No one. There should be no hunger, no evictions, none of that. Nothing. There should be no homeless people in the church. If you really want to get technical, there should be no homeless people in the church. But you know what you'll always find? Something like that. You'll find the broke, but you'll always find the rich at the top, mind you. They live really good. They live really good. Meanwhile, the rest don't. Bringing stuff into a storehouse is to distribute, not to keep. It's to distribute at a time of need. That is the whole point of the storehouse. The storehouse is there so that when people need, they can go to said storehouse. That is no longer the church. Now that money that you give has gone towards light bills, water bills, salary, upgrades, toys, food, everything to do with the building. Is that what he intended? Is that what he intended? He wants to make sure that you have enough money to put on a good show. He wants to make sure you have enough money to uh, outreach people by a music album. He wants to make sure you have enough money to have the softest seats, the best lights. That's tithing. And this is the that is not abnormal. That is not abnormal. That has become the normal mode of operation now. Because one, you have been ingrained in supplying yourself. Okay, let me break it down a little bit. We understand that miracles we can't do. Okay, can't do miracles. However, the day to day stuff I should be able to handle. I should be more than able to handle the day to day stuff. I shouldn't need God for that. That's something I should be taking care of. And when even the day to day stuff doesn't get taken care of, now it's a problem that I have created. There is no way that God's going to be so concerned about the day to day stuff that I'm supposed to take care of. He can take care of the big stuff that I can't do, but the small stuff that should be on me. And when I can't trust him for that because he's not interested in that. That's what we really think. He's not interested in the small stuff. My lights are going to get shut off. I need to figure a way to fix this. Not leave it up to him. You have to fix it. Someone's in the hospital about to die. That you will take to God because that needs a miracle. That one needs a miracle. Whether we like it or not, we pick and choose how we trust him. If it's one thing I am learning day by day in this walk that I'm on, is that trusting him for the smallest and the biggest is the hardest thing. I can't lie to you. Worry is always at my door, hoping for me to just give into it. Take, for instance, right now, okay? Right now, I will be as transparent as I can with you guys. Right now, in this portion of my life, everything is lacking. And when I say lacking, I mean lacking. Everything is lacking. I have spent my whole life working. I've been working since I was 12 and a half, 13 years old. Always had a job. I was always the one to be taking care of the things that are mundane day to day. The goal was to make money so I can do what I wanted to do. Life had a whole different layout after some injuries. Then this drops. It has me doing this. This is nowhere near supplying what my former job did. My day to day has zero protections on it. What my faith has to be is that God will provide in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Now, I don't mean provide that he will get this bill paid and he will get that bill paid. I don't think in that, as much as I would love that to happen, I don't consider that the blessing. If tomorrow I get up and everything is done, I can't keep my phone, my light, my water, or my house, will I still trust God? I have 5 kids. Suppose tomorrow it's an eviction time and now I'm homeless with 5 kids. What will I do? Will I still trust God and live like he still exists? Or will I somehow lose a little bit of confidence in this person that I say I worship? Will I? It is right there on the cusp of my mind. I'm not going to deny that my flesh wants to worry about this. It is a massive worry for me. But why worry? It's not going to change anything. It's not going to stop anything. It's not going to increase time. It's not going to decrease time. It'll do nothing. Meanwhile, I say I trust him, but I only want to trust him when I know I can see the end. That's not trust. That's that's not trust at all. Tithing is not just funds. It's your all. If all you have is time, give your first fruits of your time. If that's all you have, there have been three different times in my world here since doing this program where my old mind of going to work was a really, really, really plausible thing to me. Just dump this idea of straight talk and go get a job. Dump too strong, dump it all, forget this online thing and go find a job. Every time it popped up, something comes along and changes that route. Now, mind you, it changes the route, but it doesn't change the situation. Never changes my situation. So, what do I decide? Do I still give of my time? Do I still submit? Now, mind you, I'm not getting anything out of this, right? That's what I've been telling myself. Every time I get to that point, every time, he opens back my eyes to understand this is not about you, bro. It's not about you. It will never be about you. I called you to do this, and you're going to do it. I say all that to tell you that the pull for self is very strong, and the church knows that. And the church will use, and I mean the church in the bad sense. I don't mean people who actually follow Christ. I mean the church. They use that emotional state, that upheaval, that battle to get from you what is not commanded. They have created a brand new thing that was never intended to hold you in stockades and are holding you in stockades. If you give, blah, blah, blah. If you give more, even blah, blah, blah. This is how it's been now. It is so much so that they've invested money in buying gold plated trays to pass around, velvet inlay. Some have boxes. Because they have to make it special. It has to be an event. And now you get to see what someone else gave as an effort to push you to give more and feel guilty if you give less. The visual is very profound. That visual, whether you think it or not, is so profound on the human psyche. It is incredible. You go to church one Sunday and you dump $10 in there, and the next person sees you dump 10 and they dump 20 and you see them dump 20. That just made you feel like you did less. You don't have to admit it, but that's what just happened. The other person just felt really haughty now because they dropped 20 and you dropped 10. But then they hand it off and the next person drops 50 in there and now they feel like less. And the next time they're going to start giving more just out of competition for the person that just gave. It is a mental game. So I'll say it again because I think I said it earlier. This particular, forget what the pastor said, the verse was about a group of people who had already, by themselves, on their own accord, decided to help. That's all. And a delegation was going to be sent to make sure that what they were going to give was out of generosity and not out of obligation. That is all that verse was speaking about. To verify with the people giving that what you're giving, just remember that this should be from your heart, nowhere else. That's it. Now people will take that verse and apply it to everyone giving as a incentive for them to keep giving bigger amounts. If you give just a little bit, God gonna bless you a little bit. But if you give a lot, God gonna bless you a lot. It is insane how easily people will take scripture, throw it at you, and then don't assume that you'll go read it. And they gain many people to that mindset and way of thinking just like that. Just like that. If you are going to give, now you remember what I tell you about, okay, let me bring this up here. I'm going to test the audience here. Do you see the ticker scrolling at the bottom of the screen? Do you see that? I want to make sure everyone can see it. Do you see the scrolling on the bottom of the screen right now? Just say yes in the comment section if you see it. Okay. Now, what do I say about it? Let's see if you listen. What do I say about it? I'll give you guys some time and I'll bring up the comments as they come on. What do I say about this? I just want to know. Okay, there you go. There you go. That's 1, 2, 3. Go ask God, ask the author, pray about it, take it to the author. The only person that can know where to put his money is the owner of the money. If you say God owns the money, if you say what I have, it was given to me by God, if that's what you say, then shouldn't the person who is divvying up funds be the person who the funds belong to? Now, if we're all his people, right? If we are his children, and he has a pulse on who each child is and what they need, wouldn't it be best to ask God, what do I do with your funds? It would be God's directive to say, take it to that place. Go do it that with it. Not a preacher, not a congregation, not an edict. God. You are still in your heart opening your entire storehouse to him. That is the heart of a cheerful giver. Anything I have is yours to give out to whoever you want. You just tell me where to go with it. You tell me where, you tell me how much, it's done. But we have allowed the church to become the arbiter of where our money goes. Taxes, that has nothing to do with giving. That's a taxing thing. He was speaking specifically about taxes. I'm speaking about giving. Giving, all that you have is his. And the only person to dictate where it goes is him. I mean, of course, that's if we really believe that it belongs to him. See, and I'm glad Angelica said that. And I've been saying this for forever. I 100% million, billion, jillion, gazillion, Biden-esque numbers agree with this statement. And I thank you for saying it. Because let's not get this twisted, just like everybody else out there, I'm sure. The needs of your family supersedes many things, if not everything. And sometimes God tests you by asking you to look elsewhere first while he takes care of your family. Case in point, time. That's all I have anymore is time. Okay? All I have is time. He has asked me to give my time to this. My time to this takes away from many things. But you know who's been taking care of the other many things that I think I should be taking care of? He does. It is a crazy thing when you do what he asks you to do. Now, I'm not saying that everything is completely smooth. In fact, I would say it's the complete opposite if I were to look at it. If I were to look at it right now, I would panic. And I would fall into a state of such despair that I would shut down everything he's asked me to do. But I do understand the nature of God. And when I keep telling people that the blessing is in having him, that is true. The blessing for me is in having God in my life. And that happens and it stays whether I'm rich or broke to the floor. Because neither my station on earth as a rich man or as a poor man has any bearing at all on who God is. It has zero bearing. And you do what he asks you to do. Trust and believe me that the best result is not that he will give you something, is that you will find a deeper connection with him. That should be the goal. Doing what he says, the benefit isn't in the result of the thing he asks you to do. The benefit of doing what he says is a deeper connection to him. It's that easy. The more you listen to him, the deeper your connection. Because the more you listen, the more you go talk. The more you talk, the deeper the connection. And the higher level of trust you end up with. It's a crazy, crazy, but very cool dynamic. And sometimes it will lead you to a very, very sketchy location of trust. It'll lead you to a place where you're like, man, I've been doing everything you say, but this? And he said, yeah, you still gonna trust me? I mean, this though? Yeah, this. Are you still gonna trust me? Have I changed? No. Will I ever change? No. So you're gonna trust me? Yes. Now remember, any hesitation you have is not of the spirit, that's the flesh. You want practice in putting it to death? Trust him. You want practice in putting the flesh to death? Trust God. And every time you feel that voice saying, man, but, there's your trial. It's not but, man. Trust God. It's not but. Tithing is not commanded. Tithing is something you do out of a relationship you have with God by putting your funds that he's given you charge of back towards him by his behest, not by a preacher's, not by some clown in a suit in front of you, by God himself. He will tell you where to send his money. You talk to him, he directs. You talk to him, he directs. Whenever I drop this thing at the bottom, I'm always hesitant. And I'll tell you why. There is a fight in me that goes on, and this is the fight. But isn't doing this trying to do it on your own? And then the secondary fight comes in. No, because I'm not telling them to. I am telling them to do exactly what they ought to do, which is go to God first. Something comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But it's a very, very good test of patience, trust. When you tithe to anything, to anyone, check your heart against the will of God and see if you're doing it for accolade or if you're doing it because God directed those funds where you're sending them. It is a cool thing to watch him work, not giving you back stuff, but when you bless people, it is a crazy looking thing. Like they have no idea why. Case in point. Okay, here's a good example. We were behind on something. Now, I could have worried, stressed out, found a way to get something to move, to happen, and I resisted that urge to the point where it almost pissed me off that I was resisting it, right? Because it's an essential thing. So, a couple of days goes by, and the wife says, oh, by the way, this particular bill is no longer a bill. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, I called the city to find out something, and they said it was cleared. Never found out from who, by whom, how. It was just cleared. Now, did I do anything special? No, I didn't do a thing. I didn't even worry about. I did had zero care about it. Didn't worry, but I wasn't expecting either that he was going to do some miraculous stuff. That's never been my concern. I have never worried about that. I'm not even looking for that. But when I get up in the morning and I don't want to be doing something and I do it, I know that what is going to be rewarded is not necessarily something future, but my faith is going to be restored. And so is my walk going to be solidified by doing what he asks. Now, does that happen all the time? No, that was quite an anomaly. But I'm going to take it. I'm going to take the anomaly. And it bolsters my faith. Not that it will happen all the time, but when I least expect something, he does something so incredible that you keep doing what he asks, not in hopes of getting another repeat. That's not what I'm doing it for, not for a repeat. I'm doing it so that in the next time something that happens, my next phase will be practiced to continue doing what he says. Lilies of the field thing, rain on the just and the he'll take care of what he needs to take care of. I'm gonna let him take care of what he got to take care of. In the same way, though, and I cannot say that I don't stress on occasion about the way things are, and I'm not tested to want to leave the platform to go fix things myself. In fact, that was just a concern just last week. It was a thing in my mind to close this off, do it differently, or not do it at all, and go back to work. Work is a little more consistent, dependable. This is my mind thinking. This is just me. No, okay. And then he reminded me of something. He said, "Didn't I snap you in half? Didn't I allow your entire body to just disintegrate before you to get you to this point? Didn't I allow that before?" Yeah. Do you think I did that just because I wanted to and I feel like such a bad dude, I just feel like breaking you in half? That was my point. Because here's the thing. He brought me to a place in order to get my attention. And when he finally got my attention, he said, "This is the road you're going to be on." I'm not like Paul. Okay? I'm not like Paul. But in a lot of ways, when he struck Paul down, I feel like that is exactly what he did. He smacked me to the floor, shut off all my options to make money myself, shut off all avenues to depend on myself, shut off all self preserving attitudes, shut it all down. Because without that gone, I would not have listened to him to do what he asked me to do. I wouldn't. He's asked me to do something, I'm doing it. If he asked you to do something, do it. The delaying only hinders your relationship. If he tells you to give, give. If he tells you to withhold, withhold. If he tells you to give everything, give everything. This is why communication with him is so vital. That way you don't jump the gun and you don't miss the trigger. You'll fire when he says to fire, and you won't fire when he tells you not to. If you've been begged, coerced, or pressed to give, consult with your father and do not let guilt be the promoting factor of giving. It shouldn't be. It should be a unified effort between what you have and the will of God. Talk to him. And I mean, ask him everything. Ask him the amount. Ask him to who. Ask him to where. Ask him to how often. Wherever he's sending it. If you believe that what you have is his, let him decide what to do with it. Don't let a preacher tell you. Don't let a church come tell you. Don't let a building tell you. Don't let funds tell you. Let him tell you. It's his. So no, tithing is not commanded. But it should be second nature. Tomorrow, I don't have a set topic, although he dropped one kinda in my lap, and I'm waiting for that to be solidified. And once it is, I'll put it up. Savage Patriots will be on today. We'll be talking about VP options for all the candidates left and right. I do have a debate scheduled for Wednesday on the Savage Patriots at 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll still have the let me grab it real quick. Let me grab that registration for you. There. It's in the chat. If you have not yet, it's Event Create is the website, right? eventcreate.com/E/MWGF, Modern World Godly Family. eventcreate.com/E/MWGF to go sign up. Yes, I kind of do. It will be in Wenatchee and more than likely be at the building that I attend on Sunday. So they have the size that we need. They can house about 200-300 people, and I'm thinking that's about where it'll end up. So, so there you go. I just have to get everything figured out there, rental and all that stuff. So, in any case, that's the schedule for the week. If you have not subbed to the Savage Patriots, go do that. We could use the subs, and you don't want to miss the debate. It'll be funny. I think very funny. To me, it'll be funny because I'm not worried about it too much. No, you can. Like I said, now remember, I'm not deterring singles, single moms, single dads, single people with no kids from coming. I'm not deterring you. Listen carefully. I'm not saying don't come. I am saying that the topic itself is going to be skewed towards people who have children and are married. That's all I'm saying. And if you're planning to have kids, then you can take the information and you can glean from it. But I'm not saying don't come. This is the P.O. box for those wanting the P.O. box. Okay. There's the P.O. box. You can, there it is. It's also on the web, on my YouTube page in the About section. You'll find it there. Perfect. The temperature here right now, well, it's colder because that fire that's in Canada and Spokane is killing us right now. So it's really bad air quality, but it's probably around 68 right now. Normally it's around 90, 95 this time of year. 80, depends. It's really fun. Actually, it's either way, regardless of how hot it gets here, there's always 60 to 55 degree water you can go jump in and be just cool, just fine. So it never gets too hot for water. The venue will be right next to water. So make sure you bring clothing for water. Because after the event in the day, you might just want to go down to the river. It's a big river. It's not them, murky. We're talking about a moving river, okay? It's moving. Oh, it's nice. It is nice here. It's pretty. It's pretty here. I will give it that. This is a pretty location. It's a very pretty location. Okay. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. And again, as usual, I will say it again. If you have spoken to him, if you have not spoken to him, and do what he says. That is it. Okay. Anyway, love you guys. Mean it. I'll see you guys at the Savage Patriots later today. 6:30 Eastern. Don't miss it. And we're more than likely to be live tonight on Too Strong as well. So look for that. Okay. Wisdom calls to you from the streets. So please, 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 please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight the dreams, for if dreams die, rely on yourself in no way.